3 a.m. in the woods, Solider'S brutal fight for life until two girls appear. The shocking truth. Eli's heart thundered like a war drum as shadows danced around him in the pitch-black woods. This wasn't just any night, it was 3 a.m., the witching hour, and something sinister brewed in the darkness. Alone, he clutched his rifle, scarcely daring to breathe. He heard the whispers among the other soldiers, the tales of lost souls roaming the forest. But he never believed. Not until now. Branches snapped, and the air felt heavy, thick with silence. Every rustle sent jolts of ice down his spine. Out here, everything was wrong. The trees loomed as if they were holding secrets, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. A glance over his shoulder sent a wave of dread crashing over him. Was he truly alone? He fought back the rising panic, the lump in his throat tightening like a noose. His breath came in quick bursts. What was lurking just beyond the shadows? Suddenly, a chilling scream pierced the air. He spun around, eyes wide. It was a girl lost, or worse, in trouble, and she was terrified. Dark figures flitted behind her, shadowy and indistinct, wriggling like smoke. A part of him wanted to flee, but another part yearned to help. The sound echoed in the silence, freezing his soul. Eli's legs trembled as he creeped closer, each step feeling like a leap into the unknown. Who were they? The tension thickened, squeezing Eli until his chest felt tight. Then, an eerie silence blanketed the forest, the kind that swallowed sounds whole. A crackle filled the air, a whisper of movement. As if the woods themselves were breathing. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something horrifying. Two girls stepped into view, their eyes reflecting the moonlight like polished stones, full of secrets. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Eli stood frozen, the girls exchanged a glance that sent a shiver through him. Were they guiding him, or leading him into danger? The air crackled with an unseen energy. He took a cautious step forward, heart racing like a runaway train. What strange twist of fate had brought him here, and what secrets did these girls hold that could turn a soldier's fight for life into something else entirely? The reality wrapped around him like a cold embrace, leaving only one question unanswered: what were they really after? Eli's eyes darted from one girl to the other, searching for any hint of malice or comfort. The forest loomed larger around them, each shadow seeming to pulse with a life of its own. He tried to assess their intentions, but the glint in their eyes made it hard to breathe. They seemed almost ethereal. The hairs on the back of his neck stood tall. "Help us," one of the girls whispered, her voice feather-light yet filled with urgency. "They're coming." "Who?" Eli managed, barely squeezing the words from his clenched throat. He felt a tremor ripple through the ground beneath him, like a warning from the earth itself. They won to stop. Her eyes widened as she looked past him, fear etched across her delicate features. The other girl clutched her arm tightly, as if grounding herself against an onslaught of dread. Before Eli could respond, the woods erupted with movement. Dark forms twisted from the shadows. They were gaining ground. Panic ignited in his chest. He could see them now, figures just beyond the reach of the moonlight, their features obscured but their intentions unmistakable. Eli turned to face the girls again, but they were already moving, their feet gliding over leaves and branches effortlessly. "Follow us," the second girl called, urgency slicing through the chaos around them. He hesitated, torn between his training and the instinct to help. The soldier in him screamed to stand his ground, to defend against the encroaching threats, but the prospect of survival pulled him in another direction, a direction deeper into the woods. As they raced ahead, branches scratched at his arms like vengeful hands reaching out for him. The forest was alive with sounds now, growls, whispers, and something else. An insistent thumping echoed on the ground, rhythmic and pulsating, inching closer with every passing moment. Quick! This way! The girls veered sharply to the left, ducking beneath an ancient tree bent over in agony. Eli followed, the adrenaline flooding his system as he grasped his rifle, ready for confrontation. A part of him wanted to blindfold the fear and charge into battle, but another part screamed to get away, to escape the terror lurking just beyond the veil of shadows. They emerged into a small clearing, moonlight pouring in like holy water. Eli's eyes widened. Bones scattered across the ground told a tale of the forest's brutality. What is this place? He gasped, realizing they were standing in a graveyard of forgotten horrors. They come here, the first girl said, her voice trembling. They take people and use them for what? Eli pressed, the urgency clawing at his insides. Food, the second girl whispered, her expression shifting from fear to something darker, more profound. They exist to consume. You have to understand, they won't stop unless the air thickened. Eli felt it wrap around him, squeezing tighter. A cacophony rose from the depths of the woods, a shriek, a haunting call that seemed like a challenge, echoing through the trees, forcing Eli to close his eyes and focus. He opened them just in time to see the girls shifting closer together, eyes reflecting the same dreadful glow that seemed to emanate from the woods. Eli's heart raced. Was he still fighting for his own survival, or had he unknowingly stepped into a different battle altogether? What do we do? He asked, but it was too late. The shadows were already closing in, and an unholy chant began to rise, pulsing around them, drowning out his thoughts. In that moment of gut-wrenching fear, Eli realized the girls were more than guides in this perilous mess. They were scaffolding for a reality he couldn't yet grasp. But as the shadows closed in, an unsettling thought struck him. What if they were leading him into the trap rather than out of it? The ground shook. The air grew heavier. His instincts screamed to run, but a stronger force held him in place, drowning him in the reality they all shared. What lay hidden in the darkness? Who were the true monsters of this night? Just as Eli constructed the bravery to make a decision, a figure materialized from the dark, a silhouette with very familiar traits. And everything he fought for hung in the balance. The figure stepped forward, a living shadow against the pale moonlight. Eli's chest tightened as recognition hit him like a blow. It was Jake, his best friend from the unit, now twisted by some unspeakable horror. The familiar features of his face were obscured, replaced by a grotesque grin that chilled Eli to the bone. Eli, Jake's voice echoed, waxy and stretched. You shouldn't have come here. They're hungry. Eli's heart pounded in his ears. Jake? What happened to you? The girls exchanged wary glances, their fear deepening. He's not the same anymore, the first girl whispered. They've taken him. Eli stepped back, his mind racing. Memories flooded him, their training days under the sun, each laugh and challenge shared. What do you mean? He demanded, adrenaline now pouring through him like a raging river. What are you talking about? They're everywhere, Jake continued, his eyes darting away into the darkness, as if anticipating the arrival of unseen horrors. You have to join us or you'll be like me. The woods throbbed around them, whispering promises of doom. Eli felt the ground vibrating beneath him, like the beating heart of a monstrous beast. The shadows danced menacingly, creeping closer under the guise of the night. Each passing moment tightened like a noose around his throat. Get away from him, Eli. One of the girls shouted, panic rising in her voice. He's already lost. No. Eli shouted back, torn between the friend he once knew and the monster standing before him. I can help him. We can help him. Help? Jake let out a hollow laugh. There's no help for me. You have to run. You don't understand what's coming. They feast on fear and your dinner. Before Eli could comprehend, a shrill scream echoed through the trees, louder and more chilling than the last. It sent shock waves through him, igniting an instinct to protect, to fight. He turned toward the girls. What do we do? Follow us. Their voices rang clear, but Eli hesitated. Jake's twisted grin taunted him from the dark. The forest felt alive, a predator watching them with calculated hunger. A chilling breeze swept through the clearing as the trees creaked ominously overhead. Eli felt the reality of his choices pressing down on him. Either help his friend, or flee into the unknown. Both carried deadly weight. Just then, the shadows lunged, a mass of dark tendrils snaking toward them. The chorus of chanting rose, louder and more frantic. Eli's instincts kicked in. Run! He urged, shoving himself into motion, but a glance back revealed Jake's face morphing between friend and fiend. The girls darted into the thick of the woods, branches snapping at their heels as they fought to escape. Eli followed, his heart racing, the pounding in his chest threatening to rupture as Jake's anguished scream faded into the night. Behind him, the whispers twisted into a cacophony of anguish, echoing with a promise that it wasn't done with him yet. He had only just arrived. As the group plunged deeper into the dark embrace of the trees, Eli's mind reeled. Had he truly escaped? Or had he just stepped into a larger trap? Fleeting shadows traced their steps, creeping nearer with every breath. A glint of steel caught his eye, a knife embedded in a nearby tree, glimmering like a beacon. Eli skidded to a halt, chest heaving as hope flickered through the chaos. He reached for it, feeling its cold impact against his skin. But as he turned back, the girls had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Wait! He cried, panic flooding him again. Alone now, caught between the haunting past and the hellish present, Eli clutched the knife tightly. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, urging him to choose fight or flee. The shadows leered at him, promising unspeakable horrors. Looking around, Eli swallowed hard. Which way would he go? In the stillness that followed, he sensed movement, a figure lurking just beyond his vision. And with that realization, he understood the night was far from over. The hair on the back of Eli's neck stood on end, prickling with an instinctual dread that something was terribly wrong. He tightened his grip on the knife, feeling its cold metal bite into his palm. Shadows flitted around him, taunting, whispering secrets that chilled his blood. He had to move, but where? That's when he heard it, a fleeting rustle, like a whisper carried by the wind. Eli spun, knife poised, heart racing like a rapid drum. The moonlight cracked through the skeletal branches overhead, illuminating a pair of eyes reflecting back at him. They were not Jake's, and they were not friendly. Who's there? Eli called out, his voice shaking but defiant. The woods fell silent, save for the soft thump of his heart echoing in the hollow surroundings. From the darkness, a thin figure emerged, one of the girls. It was the second girl, the one with the long dark hair that flowed like a shadow. Her face was pale, panic-stricken, and wide as she staggered toward him. Eli! She gasped. We thought you were gone. Where's the other girl? He demanded, his voice rough. He scanned the shadows around them, dread pooling in his gut. What happened? They took her, she stammered, trembling as her eyes darted nervously to the trees. They came out of nowhere. We ran, but a low growl rumbled from the depths of the woods, cutting her off. It was deep, guttural, like something waking from a long slumber. Eli's heart dropped as he felt it echo against his rib cage. Hide! He urged, shoving her behind a nearby tree. They pressed against the bark as the darkness closed in, the moonlight faltering. With bated breath, Eli peered around the trunk. His instincts screamed at him, a tidal wave of warning crashing over him. Another creature slithered out, sleek and monstrous, its sleek form glistening in the faint silver light. It was like a twisted version of a dog, its eyes glowed with an unnatural hunger, razor-like teeth bared in a gruesome snarl. "What the hell is that?" the girl whispered, clutching his arm tightly, her grip almost bone-crushing. Eli felt sweat drip down his forehead. "I don't know, but it's not just them. There's more," he breathed, the unease rising in him like bile. "We need to get out of here." But before they could move, the shadows shifted again. A coven of creatures, each more grotesque than the last, emerged from the trees. They moved as if the darkness flowed through their veins, bodies rippling, faces contorted into features that resembled lost friends and foes alike. Eli felt the weight of despair crash down on him. He turned, desperately scanning for escape. "We have to backtrack," he whispered urgently. "We can't let them corner us." As he edged backward, the girl froze, her attention caught by something farther away, a flicker of movement through the dense trees. With a moment of clarity, she turned to Eli. "Do you hear that?" A low chant thrummed through the air, like a dark melody growing louder with each second. The acrid scent of smoke and something more sinister filled Eli's lungs, paralyzing him in place. He didn't want to look, but the instinct drew him in. A flicker of flame danced ahead, illuminating a small clearing. Figures surrounded the fire, shadowy forms, twisted yet humanoid. Their heads were bent low, swaying as they chanted. Eli's stomach turned. "Run!" he hissed, fear igniting a spark of adrenaline. They couldn't linger here. Not when unknowable horrors were so close. Just as they turned, the forest erupted in cacophony, ear-splitting howls drowning out their escape. The creatures lunged forward, shadows spilling like ink in the night. With a rush, Eli and the girl bolted, the underbrush clawing at their legs as they dashed deeper into the thicket. But with each step they took, the chanting grew louder, more persistent, yet, as they ran, a chilling thought froze Eli: was it a trap set for them? And if so, what evil welcomed them in the distance? He glanced back, the figures lurking at the edges of his vision. The hunt was on, and they were the prey. Time slipped away like a fleeting shadow, and Eli knew one undeniable truth: to survive, he would need to confront not just the horrors of the forest but the dark truths lurking within himself. And just then, a snap echoed from behind him, the ground shaking beneath his feet. A familiar piercing cry rang out through the trees. Was it Jake? Or had something even more sinister taken hold of him? The chase had only just begun. The air felt thick with dread as Eli and the girl sprinted through the dense underbrush. Each snapping twig behind them was a reminder that the creatures were relentless. The chanting grew louder, an ominous symphony of darkness echoing around the trees, filling Eli's mind with panic. They had to find safety somewhere, anywhere, away from those dreadful shadows. "Do you think they're following us?" the girl gasped, her breath hitching in her throat, desperation evident. Her eyes darted to the sides, searching the thickets, revealing layers of fear that made her look a decade younger. Eli shook his head, drawing on a strength he barely felt. "I don't know. Just keep moving." The forest morphed around them like a living nightmare, branches grasping at their clothing, the ground uneven and treacherous. Shadows danced through the trees, threatening to swallow them whole. They plunged deeper into the dark, not daring to look back. Suddenly, the moon broke through the clouds, its light casting an eerie glow on a large stone within a small clearing up ahead. Eli's eyes widened as he skidded to a stop. A possibility flickered: could there be shelter behind that stone? It felt absurd to hope, but they were out of options. "Over there!" Eli shouted, pointing. They dashed toward the stone, its surface cold and rough against their backs as they pressed in close. The chanting now rose in a fervent crescendo, creating an unsettling backdrop to their panic. "What's happening?" the girl whispered, shaking as if any moment the world would come crashing down around them. "What do they want?" Eli felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in his gut. I don't know. But whatever it is, it can't be good," he replied, eyes scanning their surroundings. The dark figures were now moving through the trees, silhouettes in the moonlight, twitching like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Eli's breath quickened. "We need to find a way out, something to distract them," he muttered, the tension threading his words. The girl trembled. "Like what?" "We're surrounded." Then he remembered something from the camp. They had stumbled upon some old flares earlier. The flares. If we can get to the pack. His mind raced, but there was no time to waste. They slowly crouched behind the stone, shadows only offering moments of relief as they watched the creatures draw closer. Eli's knife glinted in the moonlight, but against the horrors approaching, it felt more like a toy than a weapon. The gap behind them grew smaller, with howls piercing the stillness, elongated like sirens of death. The creatures were ramping up, their hunger calling to something deep within Eli, sparking a fight-or-flight response that thrummed through his veins. "What if we can try and break through to the other side of these trees?" the girl suggested, her eyes wide with both fear and determination. "Maybe we can find somewhere to hide." Eli nodded, calculating their options. He hesitated, the weight of their desperate situation crushing him. Okay, on three. We have to run toward the path down the hill. If we can make it." But the moment they were about to push off, something shifted among the shadows. A glimmer of fur, a glint of gold, something familiar caught Eli's eye. "Jake!" he shouted suddenly, pointing wildly, heart leaping in his chest. Yet, confusion clawed back when a shadow shifted, revealing not just Jake, but what looked like the shape of another creature following him, a haunting disguise. The creatures howled again, more frenzied than before, and Eli's heart sank even deeper. "Eli! Run!" A frantic voice called out from the shadows, cutting through the chaos, but was it Jake or something far worse? In that instant, Eli froze, caught between despair and a flicker of hope. The connection to what lay behind him was breaking. Was it all a trap? Would they be engulfed by shadows, or was there still a way out? As they hesitated, the rhythm of the drums echoed louder, and the stark realization slammed into him: the night was still young, and the forest wasn't finished with them yet. There was no clear path forward, only an abyss filled with ominous unknowns that awaited them. Eli gripped the knife tighter, determination coursing through him. They needed to decide quickly. The shadows were closing in, inching toward them, and in a split second, the fabric of fate altered once again. Was he ready to face whatever awaited them? How many ties to the past would be severed before dawn? Eli's thoughts raced as he caught sight of Jake, the familiar form, a beacon of hope he wasn't sure he could trust. But then he saw the shadow behind him, looming larger, more sinister than before. "What's happening?" Eli whispered, the words barely escaping his lips, stuck in a web of panic and confusion. "Eli! Run!" Jake screamed, desperation threading through his tone, but also a hint of something that sent chills down Eli's spine. Was Jake threatening them? The doubt clawed at Eli's gut as the shadows inched closer, a creeping dread that settled like ice in his bones. "I don't know, Eli," the girl urged, her voice trembling. "What if it's a trap? We need to move, now." Eli snapped, breaking the paralysis of fear. He turned his focus to the shadows, measuring the distance. "On three, 1, 2, wait," the girl hissed, grabbing his arm. What if? But it was too late. They bolted toward the direction they had seen Jake, pushing through the thick bushes. Every step weighed them down, every rustle of leaves behind them a reminder of the hunt. The chanting surged, a wave of ominous energy that threatened to consume everything around them. "Jake! This way!" Eli shouted, though he couldn't tell if his voice would reach his friend through the cacophony of noise closing in. Still, they ran on, hearts pounding in unison. As they burst into a small clearing, the path forked. To the left was a dark tunnel of trees, to the right, a mere shadow. Eli hesitated, his instincts at war. "Which way?" "This way," the girl shouted urgently, forcing him toward the right. They dashed forward, but the shadows were relentless, creeping closer, their breath hot on Eli's neck, the chilling energy wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Eli risked a glance back, and what he saw sank his heart. A mass of darkness trailing behind them, shifting in shapes that flickered like shadows dancing in the wind. He had a sickening feeling that they were more than just figments of the night, they were predators. Suddenly, a deafening roar shattered the night. The very air around them seemed to pulse with a terrifying intensity as Eli's feet faltered. "We have to hurry," he urged again, pushing the girl forward, desperation fueling his steps. The ground beneath them quaked, and Eli felt a surge of panic rip through him. What would they face if they didn't escape this forest? He stole another glance at their pursuers. And then the impossible happened. From the flickering darkness emerged a figure, a grotesque mockery, all sharp edges and predatory eyes. "Eli!" Jake's voice rang out again, more distant now but filled with alarm. Panic surged through Eli. He forced himself to think, the adrenaline sharpening his focus. The flares. He remembered, heart racing wildly. They were buried deep in the pack, back where they'd left everything. "Jake!" he shouted, but his friend didn't hear him over the howls. "We need to reach the pack." "Are you crazy?" the girl hissed, her grip tightening on Eli's arm. "They're right on our tails." "I know. But it's our only chance." Fueled by a raw desperation, Eli wrested his arm from her grasp and darted back toward the shadows, knowing that whatever dangers lay ahead were better than the certain death creeping behind them. Every heartbeat echoed in his ears, every breath felt ragged and strained. And yet they plunged deeper, searching for the pack, searching for hope. Shadows danced mockingly in the moonlight, and Eli could feel the creatures drawing closer, their hunger palpable. As he reached the place where they'd left the supplies, he could see it barely illuminated by the moon. Just a footstep away, but the ominous presence loomed closer, and Eli's heart thudded wildly as he dove for the pack. "Get ready!" he shouted, rolling to the side, to grab one of the flares. He turned to find the girl staring wide-eyed, frozen in place. As the darkness surged around them, would the light be enough to fend off the horrors? Were they truly prepared for the fight ahead? Just as the reality of their situation paired with growing desperation, Eli knew in that moment what lay ahead might just be the scariest thing they'd ever faced. A swift movement, the shadows scrambling as they lunged forward. Eli lit the flare, and for one moment, the night was illuminated in red and orange. Would that flicker of light be their salvation, or the beginning of their end? The flare ignited, casting frantic shadows that writhed like agitated serpents. Eli held the burning stick high, the firelight fracturing the darkness around him. For an instant, he felt alive, adrenaline slicing through the fear coiling in his stomach. The girl's eyes widened as the monstrous shapes faltered, their forms flickering in the harsh glow. "Back!" Eli shouted, forcing the words between gasps. He swung the flare to ward off the advancing creatures. "We need to get Jake." Then the shadows seemed to react, they twisted and merged, growing bolder, surging forward with renewed ferocity. Eli's heart thundered as he took a step back. One moment of distraction could mean doom. The girl next to him trembled, fear radiating from her. "What are those things?" she whispered, voice barely audible over the mounting chaos. "Predators," Eli muttered, realizing with a jolt he wasn't sure how to fight them. He focused on the flare, its light almost mocking. "We have to keep it lit. It's our only chance." The creature in front, a jagged figure with glowing eyes, let out a low growl that resonated deep in Eli's bones. The shadows pulsed violently, rushing him like an angry tide. Eli thrust the flare toward the creature. To his shock, it recoiled momentarily, the light seemed to burn, leaving smoldering wisps where it touched. "Stay close," Eli ordered, yanking the girl back as he turned, scanning the woods for Jake. Panic threatened to eclipse his thoughts. He had just seen his friend moments ago, how could he have allowed the distance to grow? "Eli." Jake's voice broke through the chaos, frantic and loud. Eli's heart soared at the sound, but it quickly soured when he saw Jake, fighting against the shadows, trapped. They clawed at him, a swarm of dark forms weaving around his legs, pulling him toward the murk. "They're everywhere!" Jake yelled, eyes darting, searching for a way out. "Eli, help! Now!" Eli called to the girl beside him, the urgency slicing through the suffocating fear. "Let us push through." They plunged forward, illuminating their path with the flare as they charged toward Jake. Eli's chest tightened. Every second counted, he couldn't allow them to be separated. The shadows lunged, aiming for them, but the flare's light created an invisible barrier. Eli dared to hope, the flame dancing in his hand. He felt electric. They had the upper hand, if only for a heartbeat. "Grab my hand!" Eli shouted as they reached Jake. He extended his arm, and Jake lunged forward, almost falling at Eli's feet but gripping his arm tightly. "We need to move!" The girl yelled, giving a firm turn of her head to the paths branching behind them. But the shadows weren't done. With a chilling howl, they surged again. The air crackled as if charged with energy, the tension tightening infinitely. Eli looked back. The darkness was gathering, preparing to strike with deadly intent. "Stick together," he urged, backpedaling. The unearthly growls were muffled by their panic. They could hear their own chests heaving as they ran. Then, with a burst of wild instinct, Eli made a choice. The left path, the darker tunnel of trees called to him. It felt like a gamble, but he remembered whispers of safety among the roots, the tales of fearsome beings warded off by the depth of the woods. If they could make it past the shadows, somehow, they might find respite. "Go left." Eli decided on impulse, yanking Jake and the girl in the direction of the gnarled trees. The breath of the darkly cloaked forest urged them deeper, reassuring yet ominous. Just as they dove into the thicket, shadows clawed and snapped behind them, their cries a mix of hunger and rage. Eli risked a glance back and felt a chill crawl up his spine. They were close. Too close. Will it ever end? Eli panted, pushing himself harder. "You think they'll follow into the dark?" The girl shot back, trying to keep pace, anxiety threading through her tone. "We have to try." Suddenly, Eli stumbled over exposed roots, crashing to the ground. He barely had time to react when he felt the flare slip from his grasp. It clattered, rolling away. Flickering dangerously low. In that breath, silence enveloped them. Light flickered half-heartedly against the ever-encroaching darkness, and Eli's chest tightened. Would they be left to the night when the flare ceased to glow? Time hung by a thread as they scrambled to escape the looming figures, desperate not just for survival, but for answers. "Keep running!" Eli shouted, fear coiling tighter. They couldn't turn back. They wouldn't. But what waited in the depths of the forest? And if they fell behind, would they become the next prey? Eli's heart raced as he fumbled to his feet, panic threatening to consume him. His eyes darted around the thick trees, searching for the flare. The sickening weight of darkness pressed against his back, a reminder that danger lurked just out of reach. "Jake! The flare!" he shouted, desperation lacing his voice. But Jake had already pushed ahead, drawn by a flicker of the dim light as it struggled to stay alive. The girl instinctively grabbed Eli's arm, her grip trembling. They had to move. They had to. The flare's thin beam wavered as it rolled to a stop in a small clearing, illuminating the ground with a ghostly glow. Shadows danced violently around them, eager to snuff out the flame. "Go, go, go!" Eli urged as he took off towards the flare, the girl at his side. The world around them blurred, filled only with the thundering pulse of his heart and the cries of the creatures chasing them. As they reached the flare, Eli bent down to scoop it up, feeling the heat against his palm. A growl echoed around them, guttural and primal, reminding him of their pursuers closing in. "Stay behind me!" he barked, and brandished the flare like a sword. They started to backtrack into the woods, the shadows still creeping forward. Each furious roar sent chills down Eli's spine, but he forced himself to stand tall. Then, like a sudden storm, the shadows surged again, aiming to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Eli swung the flare, catching one figure across the snout. It shrieked, retreating just as its companions pressed forward, their glowing eyes reflecting desperate hunger. "Why can't we find safety?" The girl whimpered, fear mounting in her voice as she turned to Eli, her face bathed in the dim orange glow. "I can't do this. We're going to find a way." Eli insisted, his voice growing stronger even as doubt echoed in his mind. "Just stick with us." Suddenly, Jake yelled out, a frantic scream that pierced the tension. "Help! Eli! They've got me!" Eli's blood ran cold. He spun around, catching sight of Jake caught in the midst of a writhing mass of darkness, the shadows clawing at his limbs, threatening to pull him under. "Jake!" Eli shouted, terror flooding him, gripping the flare tighter as if it might give him power. "Hold on!" Jake cried, his voice strained. "I can't know." Eli bellowed, racing forward, igniting a newfound strength from the core of his being. He couldn't lose his friend. Not like this. Not to whatever these creatures were. He dashed through the maze of trees, every step fueled by the throes of fear, but just as he reached Jake's side, the flare began to flicker. Panic clawed at his throat, they needed the light now more than ever. Come on, come on." Eli muttered, almost pleading with the flame. With a surge of adrenaline, he thrust the flare into the shadows, illuminating their grotesque forms. Instant horror flashed in the eyes of the predators as they recoiled from the blaze, Jake wrenching himself free. "I made it!" he gasped, staggering backward as Eli dragged him away from the encroaching void. But their victory was short-lived. The shadows, momentarily daunted, began to regroup, and with a newfound fury, they charged once again. "Run!" Eli shouted, the three of them sprinting deeper into the woods, the echoes of their footsteps mingling with the growls behind them. The darkness pursued them like a pack of wolves. "What about the path?" the girl gasped, frantic as she pointed toward a tangled thicket ahead. "We can't trust me," Eli urged, lunging toward the thicker growth where the shadows seemed to shrink against the trees. They plunged through the brush, branches snapping back harshly as they stumbled onward. Eli's mind raced, jumbled thoughts colliding. What would happen when they ran out of light? Just then, Jake stumbled, barely able to keep up, but Eli could hear the distant howl of the creatures just behind them. The very ground beneath his feet felt alive with danger. Then, an instinctual reaction surged within him, something primal kicking in. "I have an idea!" Eli shouted, halting suddenly. He reached for Jake, grabbing his shoulder and turning him around. "Remember when Dad said to run into water? But there's no water." Jake protested, fear in his eyes. "Maybe, if we can lure them to the river." Eli's mind envisioned the waters reflecting the moonlight, a sanctuary shrouded in shadows. If they could just reach it, perhaps it would hinder the creatures. A frenzied growl echoed closer. "Quick! We have to head east," he ordered, pushing the girl ahead. With every step, hope battled against despair. Eli could almost taste the freedom that awaited them beyond the dense trees, but would they reach it in time? Ahead, he saw a glimmering path of water through the trees. Almost there. He breathed, urging them on as if each word could carry them forward, but even as they approached, the shadows surged again, a tide of darkness fueled by hunger and rage, leaving Eli wondering if they would ever see the river's edge and the safety it might hold. What awaited them in the depths of the woods? And would the shadows let them escape before they became part of the dark? Just as Eli felt the hope of escape shimmer ahead, the shadows exploded into a frenzy, growling with insatiable rage. The trio pushed forward with frantic determination, but their lungs burned with the weight of terror. Eli could sense the darkness inching closer, claws scraping against tree trunks, whispers of death rustling through the leaves. "Faster!" Eli urged, his voice raw as he led the way. The girl's breath came in quick bursts, and Eli glanced back to see fear flooding her wide eyes. "Eli, I don't think I can." She gasped, despair lacing her tone. "Just a little further. Please." Eli shouted, willing them forward. His own body felt as though it was made of lead, but desperation propelled him. Jake staggered behind, the once bright spark now dimming. "Eli, they're getting too close," he wheezed, his voice barely a whisper filled with dread. Eli's heart sank, the flicker of their past adventures crashing into the weight of their current reality. He couldn't dwell on fear, not now. "We're almost there. Just think of the river." He pressed on, forcing his legs to move, knowing that the safety of water awaited only a few more steps ahead. Suddenly, a burst of shadows erupted from the thicket, snapping jaws and gnashing teeth appearing like specters of doom. The darkness ensnared their surroundings, pulling them closer to the ominous maw of uncertainty. "Get behind me!" Eli shouted, flinging the flare towards the mass of shadows. The light ignited the night, casting grotesque shapes against the trees. A cacophony of growls erupted at the sight, the creatures recoiling, but Eli knew it wouldn't hold them back for long. "Head for the water!" He screamed, and without waiting for response, he surged forward. With every stride, the echo of their pounding feet mixed with growls in a twisted symphony of fear. Eli pushed the girl to the front, his instincts overriding his rational thoughts. He had to protect her, to ensure they both made it. As they barreled through the underbrush, splashes of an unseen stream broke through the chaos. Hope surged within him, a flicker of possibility. "We'll hide in the water." Eli roared, almost there. Jake, however, faltered, and panic rocked Eli's core like a chilling tide. "Jake!" he shouted, glancing over his shoulder just as the darkness lunged. In one agonizing moment, he saw Jake trip and spiral down into the foamy shadows, swallowed whole by the void. "No!" The word tore from Eli's throat, raw and anguished. But he couldn't afford to hesitate. He grabbed the girl's arm and shouted, "We have to keep moving. Now!" Heart pounding, they surged forward, the water glistening and rippling ahead, promising refuge. The night air turned cold against Eli's skin, a shiver creeping down his spine. Would they really be safe? With a final push, they burst into the clearing where the river lay. Moonlight danced across the surface, illuminating their escape route as Eli threw himself into the icy embrace. The girl followed, splashing through the shallows, water cascading over their bodies as they waded deeper. A growl tore through the air behind them as the shadows approached, but Eli lifted the flare above his head, casting their forms into the light. The creatures hesitated, shadows elongating and twisting at the edge of the water. "Stay close to the riverbank," Eli yelled, fear and determination blending in his voice as they backed against the shore. But something unexpected happened. The creatures hesitated, rather than pouncing, their forms quivering at the water's edge as if bound by an invisible force. Eli stared wide-eyed, trying to understand the sudden shift. Why weren't they attacking? Without warning, one shadow stepped forward. It was far larger than the others, an ominous silhouette clad in darkness. Eli felt a chill creep down his spine, a deep instinct warning him it wasn't just a mass of shadows. "Eli," the girl's voice shook, pulling him back to the moment. "What are they doing?" The creature spoke then, an echoing growl filled with a haunting familiarity. "You cannot escape your fate." Eli's heart dropped. What did that mean? An unsettling truth washed over him, and in that horrifying moment, he realized the shadows didn't just chase them, they were hunting something far darker, something that connected them all. What does that mean? Panic clutched him, but he faced the creature, refusing to back down. "Everything awaits at the river," it hissed, its voice slinking like smoke through the air. The shadows surged in grotesque unity, and Eli's breath caught as he searched for any sign of Jake. "What awaits?" he demanded. But the creature merely grinned. In that moment, the tension snapped as the water surged forth, pulling them deeper into the unknown. Were they caught in a trap, the river a dark veil hiding dreadful truths? What secrets lay beneath its surface, and would they uncover them before it was too late? Eli's heart raced as the river's icy grip pulled him deeper into its embrace. With each desperate stroke, he fought against the current, dragging the girl with him. Behind, the dark shadows gathered at the banks, their twisted forms lurking like ominous clouds waiting to swallow the last light of day. But the oppressive fear hovered, whispering taunts in his ear. What did the creature mean by fate? As they surged forward, the weight of dread threatened to crush him. "We have to get to the other side," he shouted, straining his voice over the roar of the river and the growls behind them. The girl, still beside him, nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. "I can't swim that far." Panic edged her voice. "Eli, what do we do?" He glanced over his shoulder, and the creature's shadows coalescing gave chase, their hunger palpable. Eli felt something break inside him with each powerful pull of the current. "Just keep going." He propelled them both forward. The water was cool, shockingly real against their skin, reminding him that they were alive, fighting against something far more sinister. As they edged toward the riverbank, Eli spotted a log jutting out, cradled within the whispering grass, a makeshift bridge. "Over there!" he shouted. "Climb up." With every ounce of energy left, they reached it, pulling themselves onto the bank, gasping for air. Eli clutched the flare-still smokers from the fight. It was their only weapon against the darkness closing in. But just as the silhouettes stepped closer, hesitating at the water's edge, they slid back into the gloom, whispers echoing around them like a mocking chorus. "What do they want?" The girl breathed, clutching her arms while glancing nervously at the shadows swirling at the water. "I don't know," Eli admitted, voice trembling with uncertainty. "But we have to confront it. We have to find Jake." The thought of his friend lost to the shadows buried deep in panic. The girl looked at him, eyes wide with fear, uncertainty flickering like the dying flame of the flare in Eli's hand. "And then what?" she whispered. "What if we don't find him?" That question hung heavy in Eli's chest, but he shook it off. "We will. Together." Determination surged through him, igniting a flicker of hope. Then, the very air shifted, silence enveloping them. One shadow stepped forward, bigger and even more sinister, a phantom illuminated by the moonlight that clawed at reality. "You seek him?" it asked, voice a chilling whisper that slithered into Eli's heart. "Yes," he shouted, brandishing the flare. "Where is he? What do you want?" "Everything awaits," the creature hissed. "You cannot outrun it. To confront your fates, you must choose." Eli felt his chest constrict. "Choose?" It felt like a cruel trick. "Choose what?" "Let him go." The creature leaned closer, its form rippling with malice. "He is waiting for you, Eli. The shadows demand a sacrifice to reveal the truth." "What truth?" Eli's voice broke. Panic intermingled with fury, burning his insides. But shadows surged forward, thrumming with energy and hunger. They reached for Eli, extending wicked tendrils. "Face the darkness," the creature whispered, "or be consumed." Suddenly, memories flooded Eli's mind, laughter shared with Jake, the camaraderie of their unit, the brotherhood woven like armor against fear. Each moment flashed vibrant against the encroaching gray, none made sense in this place of horrors. Eli squared his shoulders, gripping the flare tighter, deciding he wouldn't let the darkness take what mattered most. "Not today." He yelled against the tide of shadows. "I refuse." With fierce resolve, he hurled the flare into the beating heart of the dark. The fiery glow illuminated everything. Shadows recoiled like roaches from the light, revealing a path they had never seen. Eli turned to the girl. "Go. We have to follow." They raced forward, hearts pounding in unison, abandoning the safety of the bank for the uncharted truth. They ran through twisting branches, tears in their eyes, fueled by the warmth of hope as spite chased them away. Eli! A voice cried out, a familiar sound drifting through the haze. Help! Jake! Eli's chest felt lighter. They dashed toward the call, each heartbeat bringing them closer to their destination. They broke into a clearing, where shadows twisted and clashed. And there, in the center, was Jake, lost and yet fighting against the tide. "Jake, hold on!" Eli shouted, extending his arm through the chaos. "Help me!" The darkness, Jake gasped, the shadows surrounding him, feasting on his fear. "Grab my hand," Eli urged, readjusting the flare to fend off the dark. The girl beside him flickered with renewed strength, rushing forward to join them. With a primal roar, Eli and the girl pulled on the flailing limbs of their friend. Strength surged through their bond as Jake's grip connected with Eli's. Together, they emerged through the whirlpool of darkness, pushing against the shadows, the agonizing weight giving way as they reached the edge of the clearing. The shadows writhed and fought, desperate to reclaim what they felt belonged to them. "We're not yours," Eli roared into the fray. "We choose to fight." With that rallying cry, the fire ignited into a blaze, illuminating the void around them with vibrant light. The shadows quivered, recoiling farther, retreating against the burgeoning heat. Now was their moment. They sprinted forward, toward the river, where the waters mingled with the warmth of the moonlight, and Eli felt hope surge like a tidal wave through him, crashing over every moment of fear. Then, as they plunged into the dark waters, movement reverberated like a tremor of life. Eli's heart soared, there was a way through. As they broke the surface, gasping for the air of freedom, they had chosen to fight together, united against their darkness. The river rippled with promise, a pathway leading them away from despair and into the light of another dawn. Eli knew they had won for now. Ahead, new beginnings beckoned, flowing gently toward the horizon, but the haunting hymn of the shadows lingered faintly. As they emerged from the depths, ready to face whatever came next, they had done it together. There was power in unity, strength in love. And no darkness could ever take that away. Now, for all of you who made your way through this wild journey, it's time to join me for more adventures. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Get in on the action, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And hey, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.